Rest in your seats, ladies and gentlemen, for King Harris is currently battling for his life following what can only be characterized as the most brutal jail attack of the century. Is the anarchy even imaginable? Alarms ringing, inmates yelling, guards spouting violence, mayhem. How did things go so wrong so quickly? Furthermore, why was King Harris the subject of numerous scandals in the midst of this nightmare? Was it anything far darker, or was this just another violent outburst? The rumors are circulating. According to unnamed sources, guards went much beyond protocol, transforming what was meant to be a normal confinement situation into a full-fledged fight. The social media craze is also crazy. About what actually transpired behind those shut doors, people are blogging, discussing, and speculating on every conceivable scenario. What exactly transpired within those walls? Who is the guilty party? Does King Harris himself, the prison staff, or some covert power struggle go unspoken yet? You will see every startling detail, every convoluted plot, and every jaw-dropping incident that turns this story into more than simply news at the end of the film. It's a full-fledged extravaganza that you won't be able to stop talking about. You don't want to miss any of this insanity, I promise. Gentlemen and ladies, let's get right into the controversy that has everyone talking because King Harris did more than simply create headlines. He blew them up. This legendary person has been the subject of rumors for months. The mere mention of this man appears to stir up uproar wherever he goes. The night that transformed a routine jail lockdown into a bloody fight, however, was something that no one could have predicted. According to the official reports, it all started out innocently. According to our sources, security logs reveal that King Harris participated in what were allegedly standard cell checks. Ordinary, huh? Apparently, routine in this facility is accompanied by complete insanity. The scenario escalated in a matter of minutes, according to sources with knowledge of the incident who talked to us under strict anonymity. It is said that guards went up to King Harris to impose protocol. However, witnesses say that a brawl broke out almost instantly, with blows being traded, restraint measures going awry, and the situation degenerating into an uncontrollable craze. King Harris is no stranger to confrontation, for those who keep count. Past events suggest that this person lives in disorder and appears to defy authority at every opportunity. A trend is suggested by insider reports of previous arrests, disobedience at hearings, public outbursts, and a remarkable ability to use situational manipulation to his advantage. This so-called jail uprising was, in many respects, virtually inevitable for someone with his background. However, the extreme savagery and the number of casualties that were barely prevented are what set this case apart and are truly disturbing. We got the leaked surveillance film through unidentified methods, and it purports to show King Harris at the epicenter of the storm. According to reports, guards tasked with keeping the peace reacted too violently, and it's more complicated than a simple case of overzeal. It was said that these strategies were aggressive and almost violent. The deployment of chemical sprays, batons, and tasers was reported by anonymous sources as being organized, but totally uncontrolled. A man with the fortitude and infamous temper of King Harris, the altercation took on a dramatic quality. The public's response has been explosive, of course. Videos, memes, and threads analyzing every viewpoint exploded on social media in a matter of minutes. Concurrently trending hashtags have been those demanding justice, supporting King Harris, and blaming jail officials for carelessness. Constantly on the lookout, the online audience has turned the jail yard into a virtual courtroom. Thoughts are circulating, speculations are growing, and new insider leaks appear daily. While some of them are wholly unsubstantiated, it is hard to overlook them in light of the fervor surrounding this man's most recent near-death experience. Insiders who have chosen to remain nameless have, however, alluded to a more complex tale that raises the possibility that the prison may not be totally innocent. Rumors of poor management, undertrained employees, and possibly inadequate supervision are to blame for the situation's disastrous growth. Imagine that a facility tasked with keeping dangerous people in check turns into a powder keg due to a lack of adherence to, or worse, selective enforcement of protocols. Not to be overlooked are King Harris's previous run-ins with the law. His history includes high-profile courtroom meltdowns and viral online arguments with rival characters. The narrative is now amplified by this history, which makes it simple for the public to view this incident not as a singular occurrence, but rather as the most recent phase of a confrontation-driven career. The weight of years of dispute is now felt in every shove, punch, and yelled order there. This is the reason why people are morbidly yet unquestionably captivated. However, things get even more complicated. Other prisoners apparently were engaged in the early stages of the altercation, according to inside sources. Not all of it, but enough to make things more out of control for any security staff. Amidst the ensuing panic, doors crashed and alarms sounded, and King Harris allegedly suffered injuries severe enough to necessitate prompt medical attention. The irony is that the exact item that was intended to keep him contained ended up endangering his life. Furthermore, our sources present a much more dire image, despite official statements being cautious, well-worded press releases that mention altercations and brief injuries. Apparently, the wounds were serious. An extreme case of anarchy, and the fallout will have long-term effects on the system. According to reports, staff members who are typically taught to react gently have been overworked. According to reports, even jail administration had trouble regaining control, which has led to more conjecture over administrative carelessness. People can't get enough of it in the meanwhile. Every official statement, every whispered rumor, and every video frame are being examined by news organizations, social media influencers, and conspiracy theorists. Whence did the altercation begin? Was King Harris provoked, or did the prison personnel intentionally use this as a show of power? The blurring of the boundaries between fact and conjecture is precisely what, ladies and gentlemen, keeps readers interested in the story. Speaking on condition of anonymity, people with knowledge of the situation asserted that this was more than a spontaneous outburst of violence. It was said that tension had been building for weeks. King Harris was the spark in a tinderbox of arguments between convicts, privilege conflicts, and even subtle power struggles among guards. Given that it could have been avoided, one source compared the scene to witnessing a volcano explode. It was too late, though, for anyone to take action. There is yet more drama to come. According to leaked communications that are making the rounds on encrypted applications, jail officials were frantically coordinating following the tragedy. Internal memoranda, emergency procedures, and damage control meetings were all initiated, but it was too late to stop the viral storm. The facility was forced to acknowledge some degree of misconduct due to public criticism sparked by social media. Not even the whole amount has been revealed, but even the political repercussions are beginning to show. Advocates and lawmakers are calling for clarification, challenging oversight, and threatening investigations into not only the episode, but also the larger systemic problems that made it possible for such a tragedy to happen. Suspicion surrounds every statement made by the authorities, and this suspicion has only served to heighten the story's explosiveness. Officially, at least, King Harris's own squad has been quiet during all of this turmoil. Sources said lawyers and aid workers have been rushing to control the media narrative and the legal ramifications. The public is speculating wildly about his health, the severity of his injuries, and the implications for his future in the meanwhile. Will he heal completely? In his already contentious existence, was this a watershed moment? No one can keep up with the speed at which conspiracy ideas are spreading. Some claim it was a planned setup. Others accuse staff members of covering up abuses. Some even go so far as to say that King Harris was the victim of a planned act of violence by opposing groups inside the jail. Real life is nearly impossible to separate from rumor. But isn't that what it's for? The suspense keeps viewers interested, clicking, sharing, and discussing, all of which are essential components of viral gold in today's environment. You should reconsider if you believe that is the conclusion of the narrative. The incident reportedly revealed systemic flaws, security weaknesses, protocol failures, and the very real human mistake that transformed a controlled setting into a battlefield. King Harris is battling not just to survive, but also to have the story told in the midst of it all. Every detail, every leak, and every rumor feeds the flames. Was it one man against the system? Or was it a disastrous series of blunders magnified by a man who almost appears to enjoy chaos? Even while we may never fully understand the situation, one thing is for sure: the public will continue to watch, and the story will not end. The following chapter starts right there. The ladies and gentlemen, as everyone was in shock at the brutal battle that followed the dust that settled from what can only be described as a prison battlefield. King Harris was no longer merely a reporter's name. He had turned into a representation of conflict, tenacity, and turmoil combined into one eye-catching tale. But the public was still hungry and demanded answers. How did things quickly get out of hand? Actually, who was the first to punch? Moreover, why did it seem that each official statement was deliberately written to conceal rather than to expose the truth? Once more speaking under strict anonymity, insiders informed us that the supposedly typical protocol was anything but. Despite the guards' purported orders to keep the peace, the execution was said to have been cruel and careless. The non-lethal method swiftly descended into violence, according to witnesses, with King Harris in the center, apparently targeted not only as a prisoner, but also as the ultimate test of authority. Additionally, officials played down injuries, and according to our sources, the actual damage was much greater despite the disarray in public declarations. According to reports, some staff members needed medical assistance, and other prisoners were caught in the crossfire, some of whom suffered severe injuries. Let us, however, take a step back and consider the wider picture. Not every prisoner is King Harris. He is a man whose name has always sparked controversy. His ability to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary is evident in everything from courtroom confrontations to social media sensations. It was more than a strange incident. The outcome was inevitable: a perfect storm involving a defective system and a combustible personality. Logs that have been leaked and intercepted indicate that tensions had been building for weeks, with simmering grudges, apparent favoritism, and disagreements about privileges forming a boiling pot. And in an instant, mayhem broke out when the spark finally struck, in minutes. The public's response was lively and instantaneous. Social media was ablaze with images, videos, and memes that shockingly and surrealistically portrayed the incident. Was anyone aware of King Harris's situation? They demanded one viral tweet? This is ridiculous. Read another. Guards lost control completely. Conspiracy theorists were already fabricating tales of cover-ups, covert operations, and shady groups inside the prison that were either trying to hurt or protect him. The story was already brimming with drama, and each article, video, and fresh leak added more dimensions. A more dire image has been presented by unnamed insiders. The assault on King Harris, they said, was not an impulsive attack. There has been a reported intentional escalation, with certain guards apparently using procedural ambiguities to establish their control. It was reported that extreme force was used to apply chemical sprays, baton hits, and tactical tactics that were allegedly intended to maintain control, pushing the situation into uncharted territory. One source compared it to witnessing a combat scene in a movie, but without any actors acting. It existed. They all saw it coming, and it was horrible. The legal ramifications, however, are beginning to become quite apparent. Civil rights organizations, advocacy groups, and lawmakers are demanding that investigations be conducted immediately. An incessant drumbeat of questions concerning protocol violations, accountability, and oversight is reverberating across news cycles as they are brought up in public forums. While some make reference to internal investigations and policy changes, others conjecture that resignations are imminent. Throughout all of this, King Harris continues to be the main focus. A man whose every action is passionately examined, studied, and conjectured about. It hasn't only been turmoil, not just physical, but also psychological. The severity of the altercation is said to have scarred some staff members and inmates. Discipline, transfers, and internal reviews are all the subject of rumors. The enormity of the situation, however, indicates that containment will be challenging, if not impossible. And outside the prison gates, there is the battle of narratives. Public debate, media coverage, and social media conflicts have transformed this one incident into a complex story with many sides, contradicting narratives, and plenty of drama. Reports that have been leaked indicate extravagant expenditures within the establishment, dubious resource distribution, and suspicious personnel conduct. Management choices that purportedly favored some groups over others, according to some reports, fueled the friction that ultimately erupted. And every release feeds speculation as usual. Was there just a procedure lapse here? Or did a darker force come into play? It appears that the public is fascinated by these inquiries. We can't, to be honest. There are repercussions even outside of the institution. As advocacy organizations mobilize, political figures weigh in, and pundits concoct stories that combine sensationalism, speculation, and reality in a perfect storm. We were informed by an unnamed political source that King Harris is the spark. However, it is a systematic fire. There are multiple prisons here. An entire system with flaws is reflected in this. And for that same reason, ladies and gentlemen, this story isn't going away. One night, one battle, or one man is not enough. King Harris himself, according to insiders, is not only recuperating but also planning. According to reports, he is already working with media teams, legal counsel, and even social media influencers to make sure his view is heard. Certain sources make references to statements, interviews, and exclusive material that could turn this occurrence into from an eye-opening headline to a drawn-out story with more drama than anyone could have imagined. And the questions continue to grow as the country looks on. For the riot, who is responsible? Did the guards have a right to respond that way? In other words, did they go too far? How much of the official narrative will govern this story? For months to come, how much will seep into the public consciousness, igniting discussions, indignation, and viral material? King Harris has evolved beyond a single person. That much is certain. He serves as the spark, the focal point, and the trigger for an event that never ceases to astound and enthrall. Details are still unclear even after investigations have started. Official remarks emphasize regulated measures and minor injuries, although they are cautious. That is contradicted by every eyewitness testimony, leaked video, and anonymous tipped tale. Inside the building and in public conversation, the tension is evident. Furthermore, the truth, whatever it is, remains complex, nuanced, and unquestionably fascinating, even as the legal teams, media, and social critics fight over differing versions of the story. As if the chaos couldn't get any worse, there are rumors that some of it was planned, or at the very least, permitted to get worse by certain jail factions who saw an opening. Some insiders claim that King Harris was the unintentional, or possibly intentional, center of a nearly disastrous event that resulted from the convergence of opposing inmate factions, staff members harboring personal grievances and systemic flaws. From leaked remarks to viral videos, from political inquiries to public fury, this is a tale that will not go away. King Harris is still the aspect that is unpredictable at its core. The man whose presence turns everyday events into spectacles that take over conversations, hashtags, and headlines worldwide. At this point, the new chapter starts to take shape as the dust settles, but never completely clears. Ladies and gentlemen, as the mayhem gradually dies down, the fallout from that terrible night is starting to show. Furthermore, they are very explosive, I must say. Hurt but unbreakable, King Harris must now deal with a tidal wave of legal, political, and social fallout that might change his already contentious existence in addition to his physical recuperation. Social media, hospitals, and attorneys are all aflutter. Indeed, there is a ceaseless flurry of rumors, indignation, and the odd meme. However, this goes beyond King Harris's position in an intensive care unit. The system is overburdened, and the public is in dire need of clarification. There have supposedly been official inquiries started with lightning speed. According to anonymous insiders, oversight committees are using guard records, internal memos, and video evidence to identify specific instances in which protocol was broken. According to some reports, there may be plans for more extensive facility reforms, while others imply that staff disciplinary measures are likely, and the political aspect isn't even to be discussed. Advocates are making urgent declarations, lawmakers are circling, and commentators are already constructing stories that combine opinion, truth, and plain entertainment into a round-the-clock spectacle. Meanwhile, public indignation keeps rising. Numerous hashtags calling for justice, demands for accountability, and countless theories analyzing every aspect of the occurrence are all over social media. There are rumors that King Harris was singled out on purpose. Some people think that staff groups are conspiring. Others counter that tensions that had been building for weeks had to inevitably escalate. Every insider tip, leak, and viral video just serves to fuel the flames. There is a noticeable sense of group obsession. Every spectator is curious about not just what occurred, but also how and why, and who would foot the bill. Costs. According to insiders, the prison disturbance may have repercussions that extend to the highest echelons of government, as evidenced by possible resignations and transfers. There are alleged internal inquiries into some employees for using excessive force or being careless. It has been claimed that legal teams are looking into every facet of the occurrence in order to get ready for any litigation, criminal charges, or civil proceedings. Internal turmoil, public scrutiny, and media attention are all combining to create a pressure cooker situation that will undoubtedly have an impact well beyond the prison's boundaries. Lastly, there is the financial aspect. The riot's aftermath has reportedly already compelled the facility to reallocate funding for staff retraining programs, emergency repairs, and extra security measures. Budgetary audits, according to some insiders, may even uncover resource mismanagement, adding another level of scandal. The public is naturally making wild assumptions and making connections. Occasionally truthful, sometimes not, but always with unrelenting vigor between leaks, rumors, and official announcements. One cannot, of course, overestimate the human drama at the center of this tale. King Harris's family, friends, and even some allies have been outspoken on social media, demanding justice, asking for his safety, and casting doubt on the fairness of the criminal justice system. Because of these pleas and anonymous insider leaks, the public finds the story compelling due to its sensational and empathetic narrative. Pressure is building, and expectation is reaching a fever pitch with each post, comment, and viral video. Experts in politics and law are now contributing their perspectives, which vary from cautious to alarming. Some claim that this occurrence will lead to a more thorough examination of correctional policies across the country, while others speculate that the consequences may affect upcoming laws, financial commitments, and oversight procedures. The message is plain nevertheless. The impact of this one incident is being felt all across, with King Harris at the center of it. Meanwhile, speculation over the specifics of the attack is still rife. Multiple groups may have coordinated, according to anonymous sources, transforming what ought to have been a limited incident into a chaotic display. It has also been suggested that some guards may have targeted King Harris for personal reasons that went beyond protocol. Rival prisoners, according to some, contributed to the conflict's escalation and created an uncontrollable perfect storm. Every element, whether confirmed or not, is the subject of heated debate because of the uncertainty, which only serves to heighten public interest. Nevertheless, King Harris is said to have remained stubborn despite all of this pandemonium. He is reportedly already plotting his next move, consulting with advisors and getting ready to use leverage, according to sources close to his legal team, the circumstance to his benefit. Social media posts, declarations, and interviews could surface soon, which could change public opinion and heighten the drama. So he's not just getting by. In order to keep viewers riveted to every turn, he is actively contributing to the story and influencing it. What does this all mean for the global community then? The tragedy exposes human weaknesses, systemic shortcomings, and the unbridled power of spectacle. And it goes beyond the hospital rooms, court cases, viral videos, and never-ending social media criticism. It illustrates how one person, who is contentious and unpredictable, may set off a domino effect that impacts millions of online viewers, lawmakers, and jail staff. And it poses important, thought-provoking queries. Who is really in charge under these circumstances? What is acceptable is decided by whom? And when everything fails, who is left to pay the price? As we continue to observe the narrative transpire, one thing is for sure. A man in crisis is no longer King Harris. A story that combines actual danger, systematic failure, and public preoccupation centers on him. There is still a great deal of mystery, dispute, and suspense. The tale is getting deeper with each new revelation, comment, and leak. Those who are following along can't help but be enthralled, appalled, and slightly fixated. Gentlemen and ladies, this is the question. What is the next step? Will justice be done? Or will the system's inability to function due to its inherent turmoil persist? Will King Harris bounce back, take revenge, or maybe change the story's course completely? There are still unknown answers, but one thing is definite. For several weeks, if not months, this narrative will continue to shock, offend, and dominate headlines. Arrive. And now, we give it to you, as we end this chapter of the drama. What do you believe actually transpired within that prison? Who is culpable? Could we have avoided this? Or was it a confrontation that was bound to occur? Please share your thoughts and speculations in the comments below. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to ensure you don't miss the next exciting development in this developing drama. For one thing is certain, the mayhem in King Harris's kingdom never really stops. The story's far from finished either. Buckle up, stay attentive, and remain vigilant. If you thought this chapter was crazy, you should wait until the story takes a turn for the worse. After witnessing the mayhem, the debate, and the utter cruelty of the events that transpired, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to confront the challenging questions. What actually took place inside the jail? Who's responsible for creating a full-fledged battle zone out of a facility intended for containment? Did King Harris thrive on turmoil? Was he a victim of his surroundings, or was he the victim of systematic failure? Of course, the reality is complex, jumbled, and explosive. It is up to the general public, or you, the viewers, to sort through the confusion and make your own judgment. Official declarations, anonymous leaks, and viral footage all present different images. A puzzle that is both interesting and terrible is put together by each punch, altercation, and calculated maneuver that takes place behind those confines. There is no denying the spectacle, the fury, and the mystery, even though we may never know all the details. So this is where you can help. How do you view the incident? Do you believe King Harris was igniting a scenario that would eventually blow up, or did the jail personnel use excessive force? Had there been more stringent control, might this have been avoided? Or is this just another instance of a defective system approaching its limit? We want to hear every hypothesis, viewpoint, and wild conjecture. For in such a fiction, the public debate is an integral aspect of the narrative. Click like if this story surprised you. Invite pals who must witness the mayhem to watch it. Most importantly, please subscribe and leave a comment below with your ideas, presumptions, and responses. Because in King Harris's world, everyone who watches the narrative is experiencing it rather than just hearing it told. Pay attention, stay vigilant, and maintain your focus.